Some mangaka who smells deceptively like one we've all met before describes to us uneducated monkeys how stands are invisible powers that have different forms and shapes. They exist all over and always have, but are simply unseen by those that do not try to see them. This story is one about a boy who becomes filthy rich in the subtropical islands. That boy is called Jodio Joestar. Somewhere on the island of Oahu in the US state of Hawaii, a pair of police officers pull over two teenagers blasting music from a pickup truck. One of the officers tells them to turn their music off, but the driver is confused as to why they've been stopped. The officer claims they were driving unsteadily and demands to see their driver's license and vehicle registration. The driver turns to their passenger, Jodio, asking him to confirm whether they were really driving unsteadily since they're on a perfectly straight road. Jodio jokes that they probably got a little too excited while listening to Dua Lipa. The officer, though, remains completely unamused while the two teenagers laugh. He then asks Jodio how old he is. The driver explains that Jodio is their younger brother and only 15 years old, while they themselves are 18. Suspicious, the officer accuses them of stealing the pickup truck, but the driver insists that it's actually their parents' vehicle. They also complain that the officer is standing way too close, joking that he could totally have CDVD 19. Obviously I've got to say some wacky name to get around the YouTube stupid filter of like recognizing that disease from back in the day, but you know, obviously moving forward. Annoyed, the officer forces the driver out of the truck and begins patting them down, accusing them of carrying drugs. The search quickly turns into outright harassment as he puts his hands inside of their underwear, claiming that women have more hiding places than men. However, as he feels something unexpected, he realizes the driver isn't simply a woman. Rather than backing off though, the officer makes the disturbing remark that now he's even more aroused. At that point, Jodio steps out of the truck and calmly walks towards the officer. The second officer immediately orders Jodio to stop, but he ignores him completely and threatens the officer, telling him to take his hands off his big brother or he'll kill him. The officers both respond by drawing their guns, while Jodio's brother desperately tells them to stop, reminding them that Jodio is only a minor. Suddenly, the officer standing behind Jodio is slammed to the ground by heavy raindrops generated by Jodio's stand. Just before the other officer can fire, Jodio's older brother activates their own stand, sliding the officer's eyes to the back of his head and throwing off his aim. Jodio follows up by attacking the officer with the rain itself, the crushing force of the droplets completely overwhelming him. Even after the officer is down, Jodio continues stomping on his dumbass until his older brother finally pulls him away, calming him down before he kills the officer. With both officers defeated, Jodio burns their body cameras, dashboard camera, and even the police car itself, making sure they have no evidence and no way of coming after them. It's then revealed that the officers were actually right all along. The truck really was stolen. Using their stand, Jodio's older brother changes the numbers on the truck's license plate before disposing of their fake driver's license. Happy with what Jodio did, they give him a hug before the two of them drive off to meet the rest of their gang. When they arrive at the rendezvous point, the gang retrieves the drugs that Jodio and his brother had been smuggling inside of surfboards. One of the members praised them for another successful job, but also scolds them for arriving late. He casually asks whether they heard about a police car being burned down earlier that day, but Jodio and his brother simply pretend they have no idea what he's even talking about. After finishing the delivery, the two brothers walk to a nearby main road and call an Uber to head back home. As they travel, Jodio reflects on his mother, Barbara Ann Joestar. Every morning, Barbara Ann wakes up early, starts the washing machine, gets dressed, prepares breakfast, gives her family a good morning kiss, hangs their laundry out to dry, then leaves for a job at the duty-free shop inside of the Daniel K. Inouye International Airport. Everyone in the neighborhood loves Barbara Ann and is always willing to lend her a hand. Unbeknownst to her, the reason she can safely commute to work every day is because her sons quietly protect her from behind the scenes through their gang activities. Jodio then reveals that his older brother's name is Dragona Joestar. Every morning, Dragona goes jogging along the coast and eats nothing but papaya for breakfast. They have a love for feminine fashion and work at a boutique in Kalihi called Eco Eco. Jodio also explains that the swelling in Dragona's chest is the result of cosmetic injections, which is part of the reason they have such a feminine appearance. Around this point, the Joestar family tree is finally revealed to all of us, showing that Barbara Ann is one of the daughters of Joseph Joestar and Susie Q, officially connecting Part 9 back to the Joestar bloodline. Due to the complications though between Barbara Ann and her husband, she's been raising both of her children on her own, which, can't lie, pretty fitting for a manga that's coming out these days. The following day, while Jodio is riding the bus to McKinley High School, an upperclassman quietly asks whether he brought the stuff he wanted. Without warning, Jodio shoves the student out of his seat and loudly accuses him of messing with him, causing a scene that leaves the older student completely confused. However, after they get off the bus, Jodio calls him over and casually apologizes. He discreetly takes the money from the student's pocket before giving him directions on where to go next. A different teenager wearing a hat and riding an electric scooter then approaches the student and tells him that the drugs are hidden deep inside of a nearby rain gutter. This entire confrontation here, all the way back to the aggravated assault on the bus, had simply been part of the exchange. As Jodio walks away, he explains that he does not simply go to school to study or make friends. To him, school is simply another mechanism, a system that will eventually make him filthy rich. He recalls that when he was just 11 years old, someone from his neighborhood recruited him to work as a gopher for their gang. By carrying out every task effectively, Jodio gradually earned both recognition and trust within the organization. Later that day, Jodio, Dragona, and the teenager on the electric scooter, who is introduced to us as Peiko Laborantes, are summoned by their boss, Meryl May Shi, to the Eco fashion boutique. Peiko is 19 years old. Somehow, he still attends high school and is a compulsive kleptomaniac. We're also told that a piece of his left ear was bitten off by his father. True to his nature, Peiko immediately tries to steal from one of the boutique's customers. Dragona, though, stops him by grabbing his ear and using their stand to slide it out of his reach just before Meryl May announces that the store will be closing early for the day. Meryl May isn't just their gang boss, she's also the principal of McKinley High School and the owner of the Eco fashion boutique. She orders the 3 gang members to turn off their phones before showing them her own. Displayed on the screen is a natural 24-karat blue diamond worth an astonishing $6 million. Through a connection at the airport, she was told that the gem belongs to a Japanese tourist who owns a villa on Hawaii's Big Island and plans to stay there for exactly 15 days. Their mission is simple: steal the diamond. If they succeed here, the 4 of them will split 2% of the profits, while Meryl May will take an 18% cut after selling the diamond on the black market. She then reveals one final surprise. Rather than sending just the 3 of them, they are going to be working as a 4-man team. Their 4th member is no one other than the gooner Jodio and Peiko had sold a couple of bags to earlier that day. Both Jodio and Peiko immediately protest, insisting that bringing one of their own customers on such an important mission is a terrible idea. However, Meryl May assures them that he'll prove to be useful. As the newly formed team sets out on their first mission together, the names of the 3 stands that we have seen so far are finally revealed. Jodio's November Rain, Dragona's Smooth Operators, and Peiko's The Hustle. Back on Oahu, at South King Street, Jodio was relaxing beneath a tree when a woman rides up to him on a bicycle. Introducing herself as a friend of someone named Kate, she asks if he can sell her some stuff because she has a big test coming up over the weekend. Jodio, though, has absolutely no idea who Kate is and immediately tells her to get lost. As the woman begins to ride away, Jodio suddenly calls her back, asking where her passion is. He says she actually looks familiar, claiming that he feels like he lent her money before. Pointing to a nearby coffee can sitting on top of a bench, he tells her to pay him back by dropping the money in there. Jodio explains that he normally only sells the stuff to people he knows inside of the school's courtyard because it's much safer. However, Meryl May is always encouraging him to expand his business and start dealing to other customers, including the university students. The woman asks how much she can get for $100, but Jodio refuses to answer until she pays first. He's convinced though that something is off here. He begins pointing out everything he finds suspicious, claiming that the woman's bicycle and helmet probably have hidden cameras or microphones installed inside of them. He even suspects that the nearby ice cream truck is actually filled with undercover police officers waiting to move in. Annoyed, the woman tells him she doesn't want to buy anything anymore and prepares to leave. Before she does, however, she drops an interesting piece of information. She explains that undercover police officers legally aren't allowed to lie while conducting an investigation. Otherwise, anything they record while lying can't be used as evidence in court. She then baits Jodio into asking the obvious question: "Are you a police officer?" She calmly replies to it that she isn't, insisting that she's just an ordinary university student before dropping the money into Jodio's coffee can. Satisfied with the answer, Jodio tells her to walk past the nearby statue of King Kamehameha. As soon as she does, Peiko rolls over on his electric scooter and casually tells her that she's standing on top of the stuff. The woman brushes aside a leaf below her foot, revealing a fat bag hidden underneath. The second she picks it up though, she immediately pulls out a gun and badge, demanding that everyone get on the damn floor. Obviously, she really was an undercover DEA agent all along, and within seconds, police officers pour out of that same ice cream truck and tackle both Jodio and Peiko to the ground. The undercover agent explains that the hidden camera inside her bicycle's headlight recorded both audio and video of everything Jodio said and did. Combined with the bag they just recovered, they now have hard evidence against the pair. Their real objective, however, isn't Jodio or Peiko. They're going after the gang's boss. The officer restraining Jodio then reveals that he's the same cop from the traffic stop earlier. Smirking, he asks Jodio how his cute big brother is doing before threatening to drag both brothers into a dark room and molest them. Bro is out of pocket. Jodio immediately threatens to kill him though, but knowing he really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, switches things up. Instead, he decides to simply erase all of the evidence. Using November rain, Jodio summons another downpour. The crushing raindrops tear open the bag, sending the contents flying everywhere. Interestingly though, the rain doesn't seriously injure any of the officers. Aside from drenching them and punching holes through their shoes, they're left completely unharmed. Terrified by the supernatural attack, the officers flee the scene. Peiko, meanwhile, is amazed by November rain's precision and can't help but be impressed. Jodio then reflects on a moment from his childhood. After an incident at school, he was forced to undergo a psychological counselling session where the therapist diagnosed him with antisocial personality disorder after determining that he met 18 out of the 20 diagnostic criteria. Barbara Ann completely rejected the diagnosis. She refused to believe there was anything wrong with her son and even demanded a refund for the evaluation. Jodio himself doesn't dwell on it very much. He believes he can still become happy as long as he continues working hard. The only people he truly hates are those like the police officers who refuse to play fair. Meanwhile, over on Hawaii's Big Island, the group's fourth member finally arrives at Kona Airport, apologizing for being late after his flight was delayed. Drakona is understandably irritated since securing the rental car was supposed to be his responsibility, leaving the other three waiting around for him. The boy brushes it off though, saying there's still plenty of daylight left. He also knows a rental company that doesn't keep any hidden cameras or navigation records, making it the perfect choice for their mission. Peiko then finally even asks what the kid's name even is. Speaking for him, Jodio introduces him as Usagi Aloha, or Aloha Ho, I don't really know, I'm not too sure. Usagi enthusiastically introduces himself by pointing out everyone's ages, revealing that he's 17 years old. Peiko immediately assumes he's probably high, but Jodio and Dragona decide to trust Mirome's judgment since she personally vouched for him. After renting a car, the four drive towards the villa owned by their target. From a distance, Dragona points out that the owner has been staying inside of the house despite the beautiful weather. Jodio notices something important though. Even if the owner isn't leaving the property, the garden clearly shows signs of recent activity. There's a poolside table with drinks sitting on it, a towel draped over a chair, and an iPad left outside. Whoever lives there regularly comes out to use this pool. Surveying the property, Jodio estimates that the villa contains 5 bedrooms, a study, 6 bathrooms, and a second floor. He's also convinced that one person is currently inside, the Japanese homeowner. The group's plan is simple. They'll wait until the owner gets into the pool before sneaking inside, giving themselves roughly 15 minutes to locate the diamond. Peiko volunteers to search the master bedroom first, assuming that's where any safe would most likely be hidden. Before moving in though, Dragona tells everyone to put on their masks and earpieces while avoiding the use of their real names over the radio. Usagi naturally has a different idea. He immediately starts handing out colourful codenames, calling Dragona Pink-chan while referring to himself as Blue. Annoyed with the kid, Peiko quickly tells him to knock it off. While scouting the property, Usagi spots one of the villa's security cameras and asks Dragona to say, "I want cameras." The reasoning for this is that Usagi can't make the request himself because of how his stand works. The moment Dragona says the words, Usagi's stand finally reveals itself. A small bird-like creature hops over to the security camera and creates an identical copy of it. Its name is the Matakudasai, which for those who don't know and are obviously massive Diavolo fans like myself, is actually a song by the legendary King Crimson.
Retune the guitar in such a manner that it inspires sort of new chord shapes and new ideas, and therefore when you play, you may play something habitual, but it won't sound the same.
Rather than having a discrete combat ability, the stand can transform itself into anything that another person, not Usagi himself, wishes for as long as that object already exists. Because Dragona wished for cameras, the Matakudasai created a duplicate security camera. One camera now records the group's real appearance while the other displays completely fake footage. With no way of knowing which recording is genuine, the homeowner would never be able to use the footage as evidence against them. Confident in the deception, the group walks past the cameras with the fake footage recording only their disguised appearances. As the homeowner relaxes in the swimming pool, Jodio peers through a pair of binoculars and suddenly realizes exactly who their target is. He's a famous manga artist whose books Jodio owns and whose anime adaptation he regularly watches online. The Japanese tourist and the owner of the $6 million diamond is none other than Rohan Kishibe. After moving across the veranda, Jodio hides behind a chair, barely containing his excitement as he watches the famous manga artist swimming in the pool. Sitting beside the pool is Rohan's iPad displaying artwork from Pink Dark Boy. Meanwhile, Dragona summons smooth operators to carefully unlock the front door of Rohan's mansion, while Peiko and Usagi stand guard outside. As they wait, Usagi notices a stray cat wandering nearby. Jodio quietly informs Dragona that everything is clear on his end, giving the trio the signal to head inside. After making their way inside, the group splits up, and Dragona, who went into the sitting area, gives everyone one simple rule. They're only here for the diamond. Stealing anything else would only raise suspicion once they tried leaving Hawaii through airport security. Unfortunately, Peiko and Usagi immediately ignore those instructions. Peiko starts stuffing antiques and cash into his pockets, while Usagi begins cramming expensive bottles of alcohol into his backpack. Dragona, catching them in the act, quickly forces them to put everything back, reminding them to stay focused on finding the safe. Usagi then casually slices open a painting hanging on the wall with a pair of scissors, only to shrug and announce that there's nothing hidden behind it. Even after Dragona's warning, Peiko still can't resist pocketing a little more of Rohan's money. As the search continues, Dragona comes across a messy room littered with strange rocks and several flasks sitting on a desk. Outside, Jodio continues browsing through Rohan's iPad, where he finds numerous photos of volcanoes alongside close-up pictures of cooled lava. He's surprised to learn that Rohan actually visited the area himself, especially since tourists aren't even allowed there because of how dangerous it is. Back inside, Peiko and Dragona mistakenly assume the room was being used to purify the stuff, believing the glass containers on the desk are beakers. Usagi quickly corrects them. He explains that they are actually flasks, not beakers, before launching into an impromptu lesson about laboratory equipment. He also identifies the rocky material as AA lava, explaining what it is before admitting he has absolutely no idea why Rohan has it. Also, I'm pretty sure I got those syllable sounds right. The AAs sound like RRs, according to good old Google. Thank you, Father Google. Peiko sarcastically thanks him for the science lesson and tells him to get back to looking for the safe. Outside, Jodio continues scrolling through Rohan's iPad and eventually comes across several photos of Rohan's pet dog. He can't help but think the dog is adorable. He assumes Rohan's editor is probably taking care of it while he's away here in Hawaii. Randomly though, the stray cat from earlier quietly wanders over to Jodio before hopping onto the roof of the mansion. As Jodio wonders who the cat belongs to, Rohan suddenly climbs out of the pool and starts looking around, immediately putting Jodio on edge. He quietly radios the others, warning them that Rohan is about to head back inside the house. Interestingly, Rohan also notices the cat, finding it strange that a stray would suddenly appear on his property. Curiously, he wonders if it actually belongs to someone else. Realizing that the situation is getting dangerous, Jodio tells the others to hurry up, or better yet, retreat and try again another day. But before anyone can properly respond, Peiko and Usagi finally discover the safe hidden behind one of Rohan's bookcases. Without wasting a second, Dragona prepares to use smooth operators to crack it open. Just as Rohan heads inside, Jodio activates November Rain, causing a sudden sun shower to fall onto the balcony. Confused by the unexpected rain despite the clear skies outside, Rohan turns around to retrieve his iPad and the book that he left out there. The moment he picks up the tablet, one of his fingers is pricked by a cactus spine. This wasn't an accident though. Jodio had used November Rain to knock the cactus spines loose with the falling water. As Rohan reacts to the prick, he notices the stray cat quietly entering the mansion. Inside, Smooth Operators struggles to open the safe because 5 thick metal locking bars are built into the door. At the same time, Usagi points out that the cat is heading straight towards them. Unconcerned with the likes of humans, the cat casually walks right past the group without making a sound. Usagi questions how it even got inside, but Peiko assumes they're fine as long as it doesn't start making any noise. Finally, Dragona succeeds in cracking open the safe. Inside of it sits the $6 million blue diamond. After examining it, they confirm that it is the real thing. However, sitting directly behind the diamond is yet another chunk of cooled lava. Quickly, Dragona wraps it in cloth with the diamond and puts it inside of Peiko's bag as they prepare to escape. But before they can make it out, a thin plastic string, almost like invisible fishing line, suddenly wraps itself around Peiko's foot. Within seconds, it tightens, squeezing around his ankle and causing it to start splurting out blood. Freaking out, Peiko tries tearing it off, but no matter how hard he pulls, he can't break free. Dragona rushes over to help, only for another string to suddenly wrap around their arm as well. A third string shoots towards Usagi's foot, but he narrowly manages to jump out of the way in time. The string then silently retreats back down the hallway before fading from view. Usagi immediately pieces this all together. The stray cat has to be a stand user, and must have set up these nearly invisible strings throughout the hallway while it wandered through the mansion earlier. Elsewhere, Rohan realizes that neither the mysterious stray cat nor the sudden rainstorm could possibly be natural. He can't help but feel like the rain was targeting a specific area, plus what happened with the cactus spines only confuses him more. Something strange is happening inside of his home. Hiding nearby, Jodio radios the others one more time with a chilling realization. They're all in serious trouble because Rohan Kishibe is someone who can see stands. Starting to seriously panic, Jodio desperately tries contacting the others over the radio, warning them that Rohan is a stand user, but no one answers. Inside of the mansion, Peiko is still trapped by the mysterious string wrapped around his ankle. Freaking out, he grabs a pair of scissors from Usagi, hoping to cut himself free. Usagi though offers another solution, saying that if someone wishes for it, Mata Kudasai can transform into another pair of scissors for Dragona as well. However, before they can act, Dragona cries out in pain as the string tightens even further around their wrist. Peiko finally attempts to cut through the string, only for the scissors to immediately snap in half. He remarks that despite looking like a thin, semi-transparent strand made from natural fibers, its durability is more like stainless steel. Usagi tries explaining that they're clearly dealing with a stand ability rather than some ordinary security system. Peiko isn't buying it though. He argues that the idea is ridiculous. Why would a cat be setting invisible string traps around a mansion? Just then, Dragona finally answers Jodio's call. Jodio frantically warns them that Rohan has entered the living room. Realizing that they have little to no time left, Dragona tells everyone to put their masks back on and escape through the nearest window. Unfortunately, the tightening strings make escaping impossible. With no other choice, Dragona uses smooth operators on themselves, sliding their own thumb onto their wrist, effectively moving it below the string. With the shape of their hand altered now, the loop slips right off. Watching this gives Peiko an idea. Using the broken blade from the scissors as a wedge, he positions it beneath the string wrapped around his ankle. He then activates the hustle, violently contracting and vibrating the muscles in his lower leg. The force drives the blade upward, finally slicing through the seemingly indestructible string and freeing him. With both of them released, the trio prepares to climb through the window. However, that's when Dragona notices something strange. Peiko's backpack is somehow unzipped, and the blue diamond has rolled onto the floor behind them. Retracing their earlier movements, Dragona is completely certain they zipped the bag shut. He turns around and bends down to retrieve the diamond when another hand reaches around the corner to pick it up as well. Glancing upwards, Dragona makes direct eye contact with the house owner, Rohan Kishibe. Rather than showing any anger, Rohan is genuinely impressed that someone managed to crack open his safe. Still, he warns Dragona that the moment they touch the diamond again, they'll be putting themselves in even greater danger. Standing up, Dragona responds that she just feels bad for him, since now they've actually got to tie him up. Grabbing the diamond though and counting how many intruders are in his home, Rohan quietly replies that tying him up is out of the question. In an instant, he activates Heaven's Door. Dragona's hand immediately unravels into the pages of a book. By reading those pages, Rohan instantly learns Dragona's name, age, their objective, and even discovers that another accomplice is standing lookout by the pool. Realizing how cooked they are if this guy has a stand, Usagi screams out that they are done for here. Rohan, however, sarcastically reassures them that they're still alright for the moment, pointing out that all they've done so far is break into his house, crack open his safe, and destroy one of his original paintings. His goal here is simple. He just wants to read what's written on each of their bodies and learn how they found out about the diamond in the first place. Before he can reach them though, Peiko demands that Rohan don't come any closer. In a flash, he activates the hustle, anchoring his back muscles into the air vent in the ceiling before whipping his arms downward onto Rohan, locking him into a chokehold. Rohan immediately tries to touch Peiko's arm and activate his stand, only for his hand to sink straight through Peiko's flexed bicep. Following Peiko's orders, Dragona and Usagi quickly grab a handful of zip ties, but Rohan has already managed to figure out a sort of escape plan. Casually, he asks if they're after the diamond, before tossing it over to Usagi. As the gem bounces from Usagi's hands towards Dragona, Rohan smacks Usagi in the side of the head, allowing Heaven's Door to activate. Instantly, Usagi is sent shooting backwards as his face starts opening up like the pages of a book. Peiko tightens his chokehold, refusing to let go. However, Rohan simply reaches over with his free hand and taps Peiko's arm. With no defense capable of stopping it, he too unfolds into a book. Landing graciously back on the floor and with both of them unconscious, Rohan calmly begins reading through their pages. He quickly learns about Meryl May and discovers that the group's only real motivation is money. Relieved that they aren't after him personally, Rohan still warns them that they are in an extremely dangerous situation. Standing across from him, Dragona stares in disbelief. They're absolutely certain that they caught it. In fact, they can still feel the diamond resting in the palm of their hand. However, it's now rolling across the floor directly below them. Using their own zip ties, Rohan quickly disables Peiko and Usagi. Still freaking out, Dragona remains frozen in the hallway, trying to process the impossible situation unfolding before them. The diamond is right there, yet somehow they can't actually take it. With the groupies all tied up though, Rohan calmly calls the police and reports the robbery. The dispatcher tells him to stay on the line until the officers arrive, and Rohan even shows Dragona his phone to prove that the police would show up within the next 10 minutes or so. With the situation completely under control, Rohan begins walking towards Dragona, insisting that they tie them up as well. Knowing that they are running out of time, Dragona, in a desperate attempt to escape, quickly grabs the diamond, places it inside of a pouch, and prepares to run. However, just as they are about to escape, a strange clinking sound comes from a nearby cup sitting on a table. Rohan takes a look inside and sees the diamond somehow sitting inside of the cup. Completely stunned, Dragona realizes that they have lost the diamond yet again, and if that wasn't enough, the money Peiko stole earlier suddenly spills out of his pockets, allowing Rohan to calmly pick up the bills while commenting that everything has simply returned to where it belongs. Terrified by what they're witnessing, Dragona asks the obvious question, "Who are you?" Rohan calmly responds that he should be the one asking the same thing to the people who broke into his home. He approaches Dragona, who is completely paralyzed with fear and is just moments away from restraining them when the sound of rain starts echoing out from behind him. The moment Rohan turns towards the strange phenomenon, the rain stops, leaving the entire room soaked. Suspicious, Rohan returns to inspect the area more carefully. He guesses that it most likely has something to do with the final thief and calls out to him, only to hear the sound of dripping water and no reply. Getting down, Rohan intently inspects the area. From what he can gather, the ability does not have a large area of effect. However, he does know that there are innate rules to the range a stand might have. Walking further in, he can only question for what reason would his opponent make it rain inside of his mansion. As Rohan steps onto the carpet, he notices that the rainwater has seeped deep into it. Curious, he kneels down to examine it when all of a sudden the floor gives out. The concrete beneath the carpet collapses, sending Rohan falling into a hidden hole. Before he can react, Jodio suddenly appears behind him, using an indoor decorative fence to bind his neck to it. Rohan tries tearing at the zip tie, but before he can get his paws on it, Jodio ties his hands together. Standing over him now, Jodio apologizes for everything, obviously still slightly fanboying over his favorite artist. Reflecting on the attack, Rohan quickly understands how Jodio can manipulate the individual weight of each raindrop. After it seeped through the carpet, he then used it to destroy the concrete beneath, creating a hidden trap that would collapse the moment someone stepped on it. With Rohan immobilized, Peiko and Usagi immediately want to take revenge, threatening to beat Rohan up for what he did to them. However, Jodio stops them. He explains that he respects Rohan as an amazing mangaka and believes today is going to turn out to be a great one. Nervously though, Dragona points out the bigger problem. Rohan knows their names, their faces, and the police will be here in a few minutes. That means they can't leave through the airport without risking being caught. And on top of that, the diamond is still impossible to steal. Peiko is understandably left confused by the situation, while Rohan calmly adds that they would have actually been safer if they had simply allowed him to capture them. Their situation has only become worse because now they are being followed. Despite all of this, Jodio doesn't seem worried. He picks up Rohan's phone and orders him to call the police again, telling them that they made a mistake about the burglary. Weirdly, Rohan refuses this, completely stunning him. He explains that even if he did that, it wouldn't matter. The patrol car would still arrive to check the situation out. Instead of getting frustrated here, Jodio simply smiles. Almost absent-mindedly, he taps the phone against his head before beginning to explain something unexpected. He wasn't just watching Rohan by the pool, he was admiring him. Jodio reveals that he's actually a fan of Rohan's work, specifically mentioning his Four Circles short story. His interest in Rohan's manga was what pursued him to look through the iPad sitting outside by the pool, and that was when he found something important: the photos, Rohan's photos of cooled lava. After seeing those images, Jodio connected the dots, and after doing a bit of sneaking around while everyone else was caught, he discovered the lava samples hidden inside of Rohan's safe. Obviously, I was a little bit wrong about saying Dragona picked them up and stuck them inside of the backpack with the diamond. Bro didn't do that. Pulling out the small tray containing the 2 lava rocks, JoJo explains that he knows these rocks are valuable to Rohan. They were sitting right beside the diamond they were supposed to steal, so it has to be something of extreme importance to him. More importantly, he knows they are the reason Rohan came to Hawaii. It was specifically for these lava rocks. For the first time here, Rohan is genuinely caught off guard. Getting things right back on track though, JoJo then makes his intentions clear. They are going to leave and head to the airport. If anything prevents the group from safely returning to Oahu, even if it's a natural event like a typhoon, he will destroy the lava rocks and throw them into the ocean. He goes to give his phone back to him, but suddenly slams it down, smashing one of the rocks into a multitude of pieces. Rohan immediately panics, screaming at JoJo, and seeing how crazed he is, Dragona asks his bro just how valuable these lava rocks are, but JoJo admits he doesn't know the answer. He only knows that they are important enough to use as leverage against Rohan. Finally, JoJo places a pair of scissors and Rohan's cell phone beside him, giving him one last chance to cooperate. Meanwhile, Dragona tells Peiko to take the diamond, admitting that they no longer want to handle it themselves. Peiko casually grabs the diamond without experiencing any of the strange effects Dragona suffered from, and the group begins leaving. However, before JoJo can walk away, Rohan calls him back. It's embarrassing enough in his eyes that he was bested by a bunch of kids, but he finds him rather interesting. Firstly, he tells JoJo to keep the final lava rock and never let it go by any means. There's only one, and taking it comes with a huge responsibility. Secondly, if JoJo handles the lava rock with care, he could become incredibly wealthy. Such a mechanism will gradually become his, and a law of nature truly exists inside of the rock. As all of his friends start to escape the mansion, Rohan encourages JoJo to embrace his ambition, don't lose heart, and climb higher. I love how the climb higher thing is kind of crossed over from each of these later parts in the series. Naturally, JoJo wants answers and asks if Rohan's going to tell him more or is just straight up messing with him, but Rohan refuses to explain, choosing instead to leave everything in his care. Expecting that their paths will eventually cross again, he does agree to withdraw the police report though. Finally, he then warns JoJo that he shouldn't tell a single person what he knows about the lava rock. From what he saw, he doesn't think he should trust the people he came here with. After hearing everything, JoJo then leaves the mansion. Rejoining the others, he tells them that the police situation has been handled. For now, they will head back through the jungle, return to the car, and make their way home. Before they leave though, Usagi pulls something from his backpack, an original pink dark boy drawing by Rohan, something he secretly stole earlier. I love how Pink Dark Boy is just Heaven's Door, dude's using his own stand as the main character in his manga, which is, kind of goated. Also, someone can let me know down below, but right now this Rohan seems pretty much identical to our Rohan from the earlier parts in the series. Bro's even got the exact same dog. Anyways, and since Usagi has never actually read the manga, he asks JoJo how much the artwork might be worth. Immediately, JoJo gets jealous and doesn't even appraise the artwork. Teasing him more, Usagi says there isn't a chance he's going to give it away. Across from them, Peiko proudly shows the diamond off to Dragona. Weirdly, he's completely unaffected by its strange properties, able to carry it without any issue. While the group celebrates their escape though, something is watching them. From the roof of Rohan's villa, a cat approaches and silently observes the group as they leave. Then, another cat appears, before a third also rolls up behind it. Quietly, the 3 identical cats chase after them through the jungle. God damn, am I hooked on this part already. The initial storyline inside of JOJOLands was just fantastic. We got introduced to the newest JoJo edition in a 15-year-old Jodio Joestar, who honestly reminds me a lot of Giorno, but with a more violent side to him. So many questions that I want to get answered as we slowly catch up on the storyline here. Like, what are the RR lava rocks? Can animals speak inside of this part or something? Is that why these cats are chasing them? Is Rohan multiversal because he's the physical embodiment of Araki inside of JoJo's? Who is the main villain of this part? Is he going to be a mysterious entity like Diavolo was back in part 5? And how does November Rain even work? As the series goes on, I'm sure we will get answers to the majority of these, but for now, leave a like if you want to keep up to date with part 9 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, JoJoLands. Subscribe if you are new around here, as it really helps with pushing my content to a bunch of new amazing people. And just thank you to all of my amazing Patreons who support me that little bit further. But for now, it's been your professional degenerate Diavolo, and I will see you all in a little bit. Bye.